Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to have you here in beautiful, beautiful Marrakech.
Yeah.
I was looking over your filmography. You've been prolific.
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
But in fact, I saw The Master Gardener here this time last year
Did
and,
you?
and spoke to Paul about it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you could say a few words about that film in particular. Fascinating role, very understated, obviously part of a trilogy of films he'd worked on.
Yeah.
And what you might learn from working with a director like that.
Look, I learned a lot from Paul. I think I was very honoured to have him ask me to be in a film. I think as far back as drama school, when I was really for the first time getting educated about movies of the 70s, Paul was very much a part of that push of male complex, male characters wrestling with their demons and providing roles for actors that as a young male actor, myself and a lot of my colleagues were aspiring to be. So it was very flattering. But, as a filmmaker, I really was really curious to work with him because he creates very clear stories, very simple kind of conflicts and dilemmas, not simple as in easy to wrestle with, but there's a very clear dilemma or a clear conflict within not just the characters of the film, but within one character. And it's really incredible the way he distills ideas, his language of cinema, but also the way he writes, his precision. I think there's something really special in the way that he does that. I think a lot of filmmakers, everybody has their own way, but I think people can often make their characters too verbose and meander with story or make sort of a film about many different ideas trying to be the one thing. I think Paul is very single-minded and very clear and confident as a filmmaker, as a writer. So I learn a lot from him, yeah.
And you seem to have an exceptional ability to kind of traverse, from more sort of like big budget productions to indie film, but also to wear many hats, of writing, directing, acting. Do you think that brings something different to your art? Do you have a preference for one of those things? And not many people can do that.
Well, I think, the actors participating in small and large films is just part of the job. I think, hopefully the thing that to be an actor is to not concern yourself with the scale of something, to be aware of the parameters, but not to suddenly presume that you have to be a different thing because you're in a bigger budget film than in comparison to a lower budget film. But the other part of your question is definitely true. I think I would say that, it helps as an actor to have been through the process of directing a film. It definitely opened my mind up, or I had a greater perception of how a film's put together and what goes into the making of film. And, even though I've been around a lot of movie sets, to really understand on a deeper level everybody's part in the building of a film. Being a writer, I've written things, so yes, I'm a writer. I don't consider myself an amazing one, but I feel like writing teaches me about acting, and being an actor teaches me about writing. So I feel like all of those different disciplines, they're all the same thing. They're all storytelling from a slightly different perspective, with a different spectrum of skills that are needed. For example, I think being a director is about taking care of the whole household, whereas being an actor is sort of like being a child. But yeah, I love all of them. I don't know if I have a favourite. I will say, though, that the more and more time goes on, the more I'm interested to stay and hang out with family and to not travel too much. I really love being a writer, but I really don't. I have moments where I think, yeah, I could make a real career out of just being a writer, and then I wonder if I would miss acting, and I wonder whether I would, because half the time I think I'm a terrible writer. Sometimes I think, okay, I'm onto something here, and then I want to burn the thing up, and tear it up and throw it in the bin. And directing, I love more than any of those things, but there's such a huge responsibility and stress. And when you really care about something, and if you've created something from your own, I don't know, like if you've written an original idea, it's such a vulnerable thing to put yourself out there into the world saying, this is my thoughts, these are characters I created, here's a story that I think is special enough to be a film, and then present it to a bunch of people, hoping that they will see what you intended, but knowing that they may not, and that 2 years of your life may feel, you know, you might be in the grip of self-doubt and anxiety about it. I always think the worst thing in the world would be you could make a film that you spend years of your life making, and then someone walks out of the cinema and just is like, meh. You know, but that's the risk. And you can't expect everybody to love it. So you have to have thick skin to be a filmmaker. I mean, you need thick skin as an actor. You could probably have slightly thinner skin as a writer.
And talking about people being in both in front and behind the camera, of course, working with George Clooney on Boys in the Boat, 1936 Olympics. What's it been like working with him? Were you sort of comparing notes of...
Look, I secretly have got a kind of a mental notebook out with every director I work with. Same with actors, I guess. And you know, you're gleaning all sorts of things. It's about craft, choice of lenses, how someone wants to cover a scene, how they deal with actors, how they deal with crew, like how they conduct themselves as a human being. As with watching, you know, films of all different quality, I think there's something to learn from every kind of behaviour, good and bad. Now, George is full of bad behaviour. No, George is an excellent dude. He's such a pro. He really cares about the material, and he particularly has a real love of sports people. You know, you said he's made a number of films about sport. He really cares about actors. He understands filmmaking. He's made so many films. He's a fun guy to be around. And I think, you know, I don't believe you have to torture yourself in the process of making a film. Some moments you do, and some days you really have to kind of hide yourself away. But I believe if you're going to be, you know, taking a holiday from your life to work on something, and maybe abroad somewhere for months of your life, I kind of hope that the experience is good too. And George makes the experience really good, beyond all the other things that he does well.
Maybe you can say a few words about the Australian film industry. We were talking to Simon Baker yesterday and saying, you know, it does feel like there's a real richness, there's a real burgeoning scene there, particularly Indigenous filmmakers kind of coming through.
Yeah, look, you know, I will always say this about Australian film, is that there's a great environment for young filmmakers there. There's good incentives. You know, this idea that there's a movement of films is I think, not necessarily true. Not to say that there's not a great wealth of talent and a great number of great films that come out of Australia. But I feel like each film is an island. And the only way I really see them fully connecting is the inspiration that younger filmmakers get from filmmakers that have come before them. I don't believe everybody's cross-pollinating as much as it seems, but every year you get a handful of really, really great and interesting films, and I think those films will inspire the kids, you know, the young men and women and folk that are interested in making their own films. They get inspired. I know I was inspired by Philip Noyce and Fred Skepsey and George Miller, like my brother, same, that tier of filmmakers, and so people inspire other people, but they, you know, the idea of there being a film community, that stuff just happens in the gaps, meetings at screenings and people at festivals like this, you know, get to meet and share ideas. So in some sense the answer is yes, but I think I like to think it's people being inspired by the last generation.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and hope you enjoy this week of watching lots of films in your jury role.
I will.